Red Pill News is not responsible for the views, actions, or opinions of its guests or advertisers. An appearance on RPN is not to be considered an endorsement. Information contained on this program is not to be construed as medical or legal advice, and the viewers of this program are encouraged to do their own research. Well, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good night out there. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Hope everybody's ready for a stimulating conversation tonight, a subject that I know many of you have been interested in for a very long time. The influence of socialism and left-wing politics on our educational institutions, most specifically in higher education. They get to the kids first, and they're ruined by the time they make it out into public life. Or maybe not. Maybe there's still hope. In fact, I actually know there is, because our guest tonight, Gracie West, is actually someone who was run through that educational system, a former socialist and leftist, I suppose, but now she is a Trump supporter, and she's totally down with America First, you guys. It's going to be a good show. Trust me on here. I see we've got over 1,000 people already waiting. Thank you very much to everybody here. Crypto Beast, thanks for being here. Wheezy Girl, Jojo, Real Red Pill Girlfriend. I'm sure my mom's out there. Good to see y'all. Thanks everybody for stopping in. Please do me a favor and like and share this broadcast. Get it out so we can help beat the algorithm. Do appreciate it. All right, guys. Please do sit back, relax, grab your popcorn, and we'll be right back after a brief word from our sponsor. A military source has exposed a shocking truth about CV-19 and wants to warn people of the number one thing they must do before it's too late. Reports say that CV-19 has a mortality rate of up to 2% of its carriers, and in places like Italy and Iran, it's so lethal that scientists won't even examine it. Doctors are afraid to treat it, but the truth is CV-19 is here to stay. It's just getting started. It may be on its way to your neighborhood, but the question is, what are you going to do if it reaches your doorstep? Will you have the knowledge you need to be a hero for your family, or will you panic? Well, one thing you can do is head over to www.studythevirus.com and watch the free video on how you can be ready to protect your family from a possible black swan epidemic. You'll feel the fear melting away from your heart with this information, and your eyes will open to the power you have to make it through this crisis, and really, any other crisis at all. That's www.studythevirus.com and watch the free video. And remember, knowledge is power. All right, guys, let me get the slow mode put on so that everybody can have a good time in the chat. Need to say thank you to Sassy Gal, where we go one, we go all. Also, EO2 Dave says, listen to Black Sabbath War Pigs. It's a fit perfect for today, as it did when written. Past proves future in this instance. Let me just fix this chat for you guys real quick. We're going to go on a 60-second slow mode. There we go. All right, so tonight, you guys, my guest is going to be Gracie West. And this is her book, I should say that, Breathing in Water. You can get that if you like. The link is in the description of the video. I also put that in the chat as well. She is a women's studies major, and she has a master's in sociology and religion. And she, like I said, she made her way through the educational system here in the United States, as did I. I can vouch for everything she's going to be saying tonight. The leftists have taken over education, and this is one of the most important subjects, in my opinion, that we have here in this country, because unless we do something about it, or at least know how to recognize it and maybe help unindoctrinate people, then we could potentially lose a lot of people. But I think that with the way things are going, I think a lot of people are waking up. And so without further ado, please join me in welcoming my guest for this evening, Gracie West. Gracie, how are you?
Hi, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad you're here. So I should also say that you are the sister-in-law of a good friend of the program, Mr. Nate Kane, which is pretty cool.
Yes, I am. He used to be very ashamed of me, and now he just thinks I'm.
No need to be anymore, huh?
No, no, no. I mean, he's always loved me, but yeah, we used to have sibling rivalry. But
Okay.
yeah, now we're all good.
Well, good. I'm glad you guys are getting along. It's important, to, especially in today's climate. Need to say thank you to Called by Grace 77LP and Michael Kenny for joining as members. Michael, weren't you a member before? I don't know what happened, buddy, but glad you're still here. Crypto Beatles says, appreciate what you bring to us. We need more people like you giving us a different opinion, different version, a red pill, so to speak. Stay safe and God bless. Thank you for that, Crypto Beatles. The Mandalorian says, am I allowed to say comfy even if it isn't Sunday? Yes, you're allowed to say comfy any day of the week. That's one of the underlying themes of this entire show. Concrete Watershed says partial lockdown in Minnesota. Yep, getting a lot of reports of that from all across the country. Joshua Thomas says thank you for all you do, and then Joshua Thomas again said thank you. So thank you 2 times, Josh. I appreciate it. So Gracie, a women's studies major is probably as far left as you can get in today's world, I think. Anytime we think about, or at least anytime I think about the prototypical SJW, that's what I think, is somebody who's a women's studies major. And, in reading your book, you really captured, like, quintessentially exactly what I imagine when I'm thinking about these people, and I love how you brought that internal struggle out too, because I have to imagine that these people, even though they've been so fully indoctrinated, they still have to be feeling that too. I mean, there has to be a level of, this is ridiculous. Why am I being forced to remember everybody's pronouns? Why do I have to, think that I am less because I am, this race rather than this race? What was the experience like for you going through this process?
Well, I would say it's very similar to a religious indoctrination. So, less of an education, more of an indoctrination into radicalism, radical activism. I I don't think they should be allowed to teach women's studies at universities and give out degrees, because you really are not being educated. You're not being given the opportunity to see 2 different sides and to really think about how to think, but you're being told what to think.
Mm-hmm.
And so they might present 2 different sides, but they always tell you what to think about both sides. So, you're a young, impressionable 20 something and you're paying for an education. So you think that you're being taught something by people who know more than you.
Mm.
And turns out you're actually paying people to persuade you into what I now reflect on as, I call it, a secular non-diest religion. And having gotten a master's degree in the sociology of religion, I can see kind of clearly how the religious phenomenon of that group really does play out. And you were talking about the feeling of, why do I have to feel bad because of my group? Actually, people aren't thinking that when they're in it, because it's sort of a moral obligation. And, people need a moral framework. A lot of folks are not raised with one. And so, being raised, well, I mean, not one that's explicit.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, even if you're secular, you get raised in a home where your parents tell you what's wrong and right, but, you don't necessarily have a grand narrative of the bad guy and the good guy. And so I think young people get stuck in it, kind of like a religious following. And so guilt is always part of that process. And so you just feel guilty for certain things, and you think about things as pure and impure and that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, in America today, like religion, that type of moral framework has really been pushed to the side. And it seems to me that they have tried to use this as a way to replace that. So, rather than having that normal moral framework that probably many people in my audience have had or have at least discovered over the course of their life, they're meant to feel that shame for being who they are rather than for their actions and how they behave.
Yes, exactly. Jordan Peterson really helped me think through sort of that meta narrative part of understanding that there is a structure in Western civilization, and a large part of that is Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Whether secularists or atheists recognize it or not, they're people, after listening to Jordan Peterson, they start calling themselves a Christian atheist or something, because they don't necessarily believe in God, but they recognize that culturally they're Christian, because he kind of helped people understand that there's this framework of the 10 Commandments that people actually believe to be true, even if they're not explicitly following it as, going to church every Sunday or believing in Jesus or God even. And so, there is something to be said for holding on. And so what Jordan Peterson talks about is rescuing your father, which is this idea of not letting secular culture kill off our father, which is Christianity, and yes, white men, and which is an explicit target for the left. And the reason for that is that they believe this is the most powerful demographic, and power is what they seek. Mm-hmm. And that's what they want. And so if they see this group being, in their opinion, the most powerful, they want to target that group so they can sort of kill off their father and take power, kind of. Yeah. That's how I see it.
It's pretty ironic to me. I mean, that they talk constantly about that power dynamic and trying to subvert it or, replace it. But I mean, it's almost as if they want to make men and, certain groups of men specifically, the new, underclass or the new oppressed peoples. Just need to say thank you to Sean Hannas. He said, Josh Raffle. I don't know if you just wanted me to say your buddy's name, but Josh Raffle, hope you're watching. Alexandria Occasional Cortex, candidate for Arizona, for the representative seat of Arizona, Senator. Sean Hannas, again, says Josh Raffle. Thank you, Sean. Michael Kenny says, very worried about how the Q community is risking an awful lot on the hope that this CV is fake somehow or a cover for the plan. Too few are treating it like an actual virus is killing. I can understand that. When Grace and I were just talking about what the situation was like in her state before we started, obviously people are getting sick. I've had some of my viewers say that they are sick. My opinion about the whole thing is that in the end, everything's going to wash out. I mean, we've had, periods of plague and epidemics throughout history and in every culture ever. We just haven't experienced it here in our lifetime, and civilization has survived. People are going to be okay. Kath D says, red pilling my son and best friend after 20 years of making them think I'm crazy. Thanks for all you do. Glad to be able to help with that. Michael Kenny said that he needed to wait for his membership until payday. Marty Cannon says, where we go one, we go all. Appreciate you, Marty. James Lucas says, Google's search engine, washing your hands, child bed, savior of mothers, just a few. CNN also ran a story on this man in the imagery. What say you? I don't know. I haven't seen it. SP, thank you for joining as a member. And Mike Q says, we take it seriously. We knew that future proves past. QMAT post 734 and 762. God bless us all, where we go when we go all worldwide. So, I mean, what do you think that that the end result would be, Grace, if these people were allowed to take this to its logical conclusion? I mean, would it be the total subjugation of men and, the Caucasian race? I mean, what happens when these people go from being the oppressed to becoming the oppressor?
Well, part of the problem with this new secular religion is that they don't have a Christian framework, which honestly I was raised with. So the framework is that you don't seek power, you actually give it up. Mm-hmm. That's the model that Jesus did. In fact, the scriptures talk about how when Jesus became a human as God, he gave up this right to godship. Essentially, he gave up that right. So that's the best example of giving up power. But this secular religion actually wants you to grasp at power. And I have to say, having been raised in a Christian home, conservative Christian home, it always kind of struck me when I was sitting in these classes, and yes, I was being indoctrinated, but at my core, I knew something was wrong because of this idea of power. It didn't ring true that grasping at power was the right thing to do. I already had a different framework. But in my mind, what was happening is I was thinking, well, yeah, it's someone else's turn now. They were teaching me to think this. It's someone else's turn. So yeah, dethrone this group and put that group in there. And, they help you, well, they show you how not to think about people as individuals, see people as groups, but especially groups of skin color. But I would say when you're in it, you're not thinking, we're going to get rid of this group, we're going to subjugate them, men will be. I mean, I think now, I mean, I was in college, let's see, 20 years ago. So it's been a while. And I think even now it's worse.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot more explicit now. I see shirts that say women are the future. It's like, well, this is not what I had signed up for in my mind when I was thinking equality. No, that's not equality. So part of waking up was realizing what is actually happening is not what they say is happening or what they say will happen. They say things are not equal, we're going to do this and they will become equal. But really what happens is when they say we're going to do X because Y will result, actually when they do X, Z results. So that alone is a wake-up call for people who actually sign up because they think they're signing up for equality when they start recognizing they're actually signing up for something else.
Right, right. What specifically was your moment where you had an awakening? And I want to ask about go back to your background, because I mean that seems interesting to me. I mean, being shifted, your normal indoctrination with your parents, which is a good indoctrination, to this, very negative type of indoctrination that you had in college, and then now you're coming out of it. But what was it that brought you out of it?
Well, I would say two things. I would say Trump becoming president and Jordan Peterson's lectures. So Trump becoming president was ice water on my face because I was a hypnotized liberal stuck in a bubble. I mean, I went to a liberal church. I was still a Christian, but I went to this church that basically was a social justice club. They said God, it was a Christian church, but they basically were SJWs. They still are. I don't go there anymore. But when I started to listen to Jordan Peterson explain exactly how socialist countries behave, I was so angry because I realized they had gotten me to defend the most horrendous things I could even imagine throughout history.
Such as?
What happened in the USSR, what happened in socialism is communism's economic system. I mean, what happened under Mao? These are radical leftists. And the academia doesn't teach you what happens when the left goes too far. They teach you what happens when the right goes too far. And I don't like what the right does when it goes too far. I mean, you could say Hitler was on the right, and yes, he killed millions of people. But when you look at Stalin, who's goes too far on the left, and Mao, I mean, these people killed hundreds of thousands, more millions, but more, what am I trying to say? I don't know if I said that correctly, but
millions more lives were lost under
many more millions of lives were lost. And so all life lost is sad, but they won't teach you that. And they tell you that socialism has never been tried. I cannot believe they get away with teaching this lie in a public university. And I cannot believe it to this day. That's what woke me up, is when I heard Jordan Peterson describing what took place in these countries. It was like, who didn't tell me this? Why didn't I learn this in college?
Well, so, I mean, we're about the same age. So, I mean, I grew up in the midst of the Cold War. I mean, I watched Tiananmen Square happen. I mean, it's been very strange to see this gradual, evening out. And now America is like the bad people, especially in our own mainstream media. So to see the communist states of China and Russia, USSR, remembered fondly by these people who, were not born yet. I mean, they were just born on the tail end of the Berlin Wall coming down, and so all they have are these glorified, stories that are told by their professors. It's shocking to me to think that these people can get away with this. Did you have anybody else, like, in your studies there at college that questioned this, or did anyone ever question the professors, or did everyone just go along with it because they were being taught by people who knew more than they did?
Oh, they go along with it. And I think it's very strategic how they teach. So one thing they do is they start off by, they don't teach you this. They have these philosophies, theories about something called whiteness. And so they have this idea about what whiteness means. Of course, white is not ethnic. It's a race. It's like a skin color, right? So there's lots of different ethnicities that go into the white skin color, but they don't immediately teach you about this philosophy of whiteness that they have. What they do is they tell you about white fragility. So they tell you that white people are really fragile emotionally because they've been so cushioned. And so what they do is they teach you not to react. The first thing they do is they teach you don't react when I start teaching you things that are so wrong and so that should make you react. And so first they say white people are emotionally fragile, and whenever they get critiqued, they react emotionally. And then they start teaching you things like whiteness is this, whiteness is that. So if you raise your hand and you're like, I just disagree, you automatically become the fragility they were just teaching you about.
That's
so it's
genius.
Extremely manipulative. Yeah.
Need to say thank you to James Lucas. He says, oh no, I'm sorry. I said thank James Lucas. Dale Burse here. He says, I've been red pilling many on my mail route. We are the news now. I send them first to Red Pill 78. Awesome. Thank you, Dale. Filled with Hope says, my friend in San Diego just told me there are tanks lining downtown San Diego. Anyone in San Diego, are you seeing this? Any reports in the chat? Love to hear it. Margaret Bertram says, watch Jason Goodman and John Hoover tonight. You need to give them some love. These guys work hard for us, folks. I'm not familiar. I go ahead and check it out. But so that's an ingenious way to go about it. I often wondered, what would people in that situation be thinking when they're being told that there's something wrong with them, and they're giving them some made up construct of who and what they are. And of course, I mean, who wants to get called out in front of the class? I mean, who wants to to be made a fool of? So they're just going to go along with it. What are some other things that they would teach you that formed your worldview?
Well, they teach you that there's this nebulous force called the patriarchy. I'm sorry. It makes me laugh now because it's like when you come out of a cult and you look back and you just go, I cannot believe I bought into this, right? I mean, I get it. I get it in the sense that if I lived in Pakistan and I was not allowed to drive and I had to cover my face, and I get it. Like, I see that there is such a thing as women not being able to be autonomous in society. And so I guess you could say that's a patriarchal society. But the fact that they call our society patriarchal is so laughable that it takes the same kind of strategy that they use to teach you about your whiteness and convince you of the wrongness of it. And they do the same thing with patriarchy. They tell you that they tell you about the male gaze and how the male gaze is authoritative. And so
the male gaze, like my eyes on you.
Yeah. So yeah. So basically, you can't do anything right. Let's just put it that way.
No. So if you're having a conversation with someone, then the appropriate thing is to look down.
I don't know.
You're not allowed to make eye contact.
I don't know. Pretty much, like, at this point, it's gotten so wrong and out of control. I thank God it was 20 years ago. I can't even imagine what they're teaching these girls now, and boys too. I think somehow they end up in there too. Probably partly because women's studies has extended into all of these other studies, which are really what they call grievance studies, which is
do they really?
Yeah. They do.
I got a lot of grievances with you people.
I've got a grievance.
Yeah.
So gender, was it queer studies?
Yes.
So everybody's got a grievance, and ethnic studies. I just think, who knows what's next, right?
Well, okay. So what is the thrust of a women's studies education? I mean, what is the idea that what are you gonna do with a women's studies degree? Are you just gonna get out of college and teach other people how to be aggrieved?
Yeah. So basically it's
it's a self-perpetuating cycle.
Yes. It leaves women ironically careerless. It's the worst thing. They're such scammers. They are like professional scammers. It should be illegal to sell people this ideology in a university and pretend like they're getting a degree. Yeah. It really should be.
Well, I mean, I guess it is a good way to set up like the next generation of tenured professors. But I mean, did you go to an Ivy League university, or did you just happen to set this in, initially at Harvard?
I put it in Harvard because I'm particularly bothered by what comes out of there. But no, I went to Drew University, which is in New Jersey. It's a private university
Okay.
For my graduate degree. But my undergraduate was in a state college in California. One of my professors wasn't even a citizen. She wasn't, I don't even think I asked her, how do you define feminism? Because no one had actually given me a definition. I was like, you know, my third or fourth year of college, and I was like, can you define feminism? Because nobody has yet. And she just goes, what do you think it means? And she couldn't even tell me. I was like, seriously, people. I mean, she wasn't a professor. She was an adjunct. She wasn't even a citizen. She was dating this other female professor. It was just like, it was in such a joke. I can't believe that they give out degrees and make you pay for this.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
When I was in my undergrad, I had to take a class. It was African studies, but the professor was working on her dissertation, which was about, I guess, characterizing and defining what it means for blackness. Okay, so what is the concept of blackness? And there were people of all ethnicities and races in the class. And, I just I just took what she said and regurgitated it back to her, and I got a 4 point. But it was, some people in the class were very upset because I was a white guy getting a 4 point in blackness. Like, how can you understand what it means to be black? And I'm like, well, she told us, what she thinks it is. And so therefore,
what she wants me to say. And I said it. I got 4 points.
Exactly. Yeah. It's perfect. So can we go over like what the underlying tenets are for these social justice warriors? Like, what are the main beliefs? Because I think it's important for the audience to understand who they're talking to. Oftentimes on Twitter, I've never been suspended on Twitter. I've never gotten my account taken away. Many of my viewers have been in the position of saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. Somebody reports them and their account is gone, and everything that they've done to build it is gone. And it's always going to be the leftists, the SJWs, that are the ones that get people kicked off of places because of things like cancel culture. But I have a habit of not engaging these people because I know that there's really no point in talking to them because we can't have a discussion. As you said, they come at this as if it is their religion. It's like someone talks to me about my religion and it's like, well, it's not just my belief. I have faith that this is truly what's happening. It's like what's taking place with the Q movement. I have my own beliefs of what I think is going to take place and what's going to come to pass. I've got faith in, God's plan, and I've got faith in what the president is doing. So these people, they're not going to budge. Who are these people that we're talking to?
Well, these people have been convinced by a neo-Marxist philosophy. So Marx talks about the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. So he talked about economic classes of people who he divided people into groups, but he thought of it as the upper class versus middle lower class. And he didn't like the fact that the upper class had control over the means of production and the capital. And so he wanted the lower class to rise up and take over. And so what these grievance studies people have done is created this neo-Marxist philosophy where, yes, it's about economics because they think, well, let me start here. They've changed the category, the groups that they're looking at from rich and poor to white people versus the world and men versus all the other genders and etc. Christianity versus all the other religions. And so they've pitted these groups at each other because they've sort of decided that all the men and all the white people and all the Christians, we're just going to lump them in the group of rich people, even though they know that not all those people are rich, but they don't care because they see people as groups, not as individuals. Now that's antithetical to America. America is inherently individualistic and it believes in the individual, which is why we have become one of the most free countries on earth. And actually the core of Christianity is extremely individualistic as well. And so what they're trying to kill off is that spirit of individualism, and they're trying to put people in groups and pit them against each other. It's become my opinion that the reason for this is I think this group is animated by the socialist spirit. I really think it is the group itself is animated by socialist agenda. And so the best way to get rid of capitalism, because you have to get rid of capitalism to get socialism.
Grace, I am so sorry. My dog is at the door. He was with my daughter, and she must have left the house. Come on, get in here, Chi. Get in here. Get in here. Come on, buddy. Okay, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, go ahead and continue.
Okay, so one of the things that they preach against is capitalism, and that's because I believe this group is goaling and aiming at bringing in a revolution, socialism. It's so intertwined. For example, we would be sitting there in these classes, we'd be talking about gender, male, female, all this stuff. And all of a sudden we were talking about socialism or Karl Marx. And at first I was like, wait, what? I thought we were talking about gender. But after they did it so many times, I kind of was like, oh, okay, I get it. The rich and the poor. But they sort of slowly bring you into this group identity mindset. And that's the goal, is pit groups against each other so that you can take down the master as they see it, even though I think they're inaccurate, and take that privilege away from that group. Essentially, that's the goal.
Okay. All right. Need to say thank you to White Hat. He says, Platinum beer is cold. Storm is here. Hanging with my friends. Good night. I feel blessed to be here with all you patriots. Thank you very much, White Hat. Glad you're here, too. Eric Anderson says, I come from Europe, not white. Geography is easy. Yeah, it seems to me that it would be far easier to categorize things geographically. Like when President Trump said the Chinese virus, we call Chinese food because it originates from China. We have the CV-19 originating from China as well, but we've got leftist reporters and journalists who have clearly been indoctrinated by this system here, and they immediately bring it up as if it is something that it absolutely is not. Matthew Lusk says, and this is something I was actually going to bring up, he says that Adolf from World War II was left and not right. This is something that most people forget. They're characterized as being from the right, but it was National Socialism. It was still socialism, but it just had a slightly different slant than what Uncle Joe Stalin had over there in Russia. And this is actually something I wanted to ask about. I mean, did anyone ever bring that up? I mean, you take that root word and you put them together and that's how you get NAZI. But did anybody ever think about the fact that it was socialism? I mean,
oh, no, because socialism has never been tried. This is what they tell you. I can't believe they teach this. They get away with teaching you that socialism has never been tried. And I heard it multiple times when somebody in class would raise their hand and say, well, what about this? What about,
the Union Venezuela? Of Soviet Socialist Republics.
Yeah, what about that? And they would say, well, that wasn't real socialism. And what is a student supposed to say? Like, I don't know. They're not a political science major. So I was educated in the most radical part of academia, and it just messes with you because you go there so vulnerable. You really do think that you're being educated, and they're like doing a bait and switch.
Yeah, definitely. Very Southern says DERW is where my son went, Madison, New Jersey. Is that the same college?
Yep. Drew, yeah.
He spelled it wrong. Drew, not Durwa. Yeah. Forrest Tillman also joined as a member. Thank you very much, Forrest. So how did you decide to go into women's studies if you came from a conservative Christian background? I mean, did you just buy into the idea that I must be privileged as a result of, what I've experienced growing up and I want to try the other side?
Well, I was just kind of curious. I was majoring in nutrition, actually. And then I took a women's studies elective class, and it was so interesting. I thought it was like this whole world that I had never even heard of in my life. It was this strange phenomenon, and they're like, oh, it could be a major. And I thought, and I was so dumb. It had no practical application to real life. I couldn't get a job after. So I just think I was a stupid young person who was intrigued by some novelty. Honestly, I think that's how I ended up in it.
Young and naive.
Yeah.
It's totally understandable. Well, that first class, I mean, I'm interested to know what it looked like, because it seems like they must not get too radical at the start. I mean, I imagine a women's studies class is just, women's empowerment. Okay, let's talk about that. It's a very soft sell. And then they can kind of drag you in, and then you've got, 20 credits down, and, here we go. We're just going to ram the socialism down your throat.
Right. It's like women's history, and they start off by telling you about the what do you call it, the suffrage movement, and they tell you about the different phases that feminism went through and all this interesting history, which is interesting, and it is fascinating to watch the evolution of women in Western societies become more independent, especially compared to the rest of the world. And so it's a kind of a fascinating little study. But yeah, you're right. As you get involved in it, you're like, wait a minute, what's happening? Why am I hearing about Karl Marx again every class? Like, who is this guy? I haven't even read his actual work. I'm just reading what people say about it.
Did they have Marx as like part of like the studies on its own, or was it just completely entrenched in whatever it was that you were doing?
It was just so entrenched in everything we were doing. Everything. It was, you just heard his name popping up constantly in all of the material, all of the books, all of the reading stuff, the professors. I mean, it's a socialist endeavor trying to break people up into groups and get them warring against each other. That's what I've concluded, because you come out of there convinced that socialism is moral and capitalism is immoral. And the only way to get rid of it is to, push down one group and put up another one. And they don't sell it to you that way at the beginning. I'll tell you that.
So what is the morality of it? Is it just removing power from people who are white because they've held it for some length of time? This is my cat, Simone.
Oh, so cute. I lost my kitty recently, so
I'm sorry.
Loving that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, what was your question?
Oh, it's just what is the morality of it? I mean, I fail to see the morality in it, because I mean, even if it wasn't pure socialism, I mean, millions and millions of people died as a result of the whatever type of socialism they had implemented. And, if they're teaching Marx, who, like, I mean, I guess I don't necessarily know what the structure was. I mean, there was Marx, and then there was Lenin, and then there was Stalin, and I thought that they were all like good buddies. I mean, like, it just flowed from one to the other.
Yeah, well, they don't even teach you any of that. They don't bring up Stalin, of course, because that would be awkward.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
because like he's, they don't actually acknowledge that these people existed and that they did these horrendous things under the economic system of Marx. But they sort of expect the young person to just not ask a lot of questions, because really they don't have you reading Marx's material. They don't have you reading the scientific studies on gender. However, they tell you all about Marx, and they tell you all about what to think about Marx, and they have you read people who are talking about Marx, and then they tell you about the scientific studies on gender. Instead of having you read it, they'll tell you what to think about it. They'll tell you that it's sexist, and they aren't telling you about socialism. Essentially, what they're telling you is about capitalism. And then what they do is they tell you about the bad things capitalism does, and they tell you about the bad things that Christianity has done, and the bad things that men have done. And so that's what they're really telling you about when it comes to history.
That's just, I don't understand how they can do that. So, I mean, as part of the major, wouldn't you necessarily have to take like something as part of a scientific discipline? I mean, don't they have like any like basis in fact in this stuff? I mean, it seems to me that women's studies is just made up from whole cloth. And I mean, they were, sometime in the past, somebody said, how can we best destroy America through the indoctrination of our youth? And we're going to call it women's studies.
Yeah. Well, I think what I understand is 70s feminists they wanted a more prestigious platform. And so instead of just screaming in the streets, they took it into academia. So it wasn't just student sit-ins. It was students becoming professors, or professors adopting some of these ideas from France even. So taking some of the philosophy or theory that French writers were doing and bringing it into the classroom. And it just kind of developed from there, where it wasn't just a feminist class here and there, but then I can't remember which university organized at first, but they created an actual degree about women's studies, and then it kind of became a thing all around. Now, the unfortunate thing about grievance studies is what they do is they bring to every campus that they go to, and now I'm pretty sure they're everywhere. They bring in the need for what do they call those positions where it's like the morality police, the the diversity and equity officer.
Oh, okay.
So every university has to have a few of these types of people there, because they have to make sure that all of the grievances are taken care of, right? So, but they end up getting paid outrageous amounts of money. I mean, more than professors do. So they get like $200,000 a year to be the morality police and decide that people are bigots, right? And so they're kind of ruining the universities, because it's hiking up the tuition costs. And that's why tuition costs so much, is because they have to hire all of these, morality police, because of the grievance studies that's rampant all over the university. And really what they train you to do, they put these lenses on you that say, look for the patriarchy, look for the privilege, where is it? And they train you how to see it. And so, of course, they're going all around the university going, here it is, I see it over here. And so they have all of these diversity and equity officers that are like, where is it? Okay. And they're on it, because this university doesn't want to get sued. They also don't want the professors and students out in the streets screaming about how bigoted the university is. And so they have to have this internal control of somebody who's taking care of it, but it's hiking up the price of college for everybody.
Wow. So when did this first start to be instituted? I mean, I have never heard of a diversity or morality police. And I don't think that was around when I was in grad school. Or if it was, I just didn't know about it.
Yeah, they are pretty much everywhere on all the campuses. They're even going into businesses in the counties and states. There's, diversity and equity and inclusion officers. And so really they're there, and they're even on Christian university campuses. On my channel, I recently interviewed a guy who's at Indiana Wesleyan University. This poor kid, he's so cute. He was like, he came from homeschooled, and so he went to this Christian university expecting that he could be a free individual, and boy, was he wrong. He said the wrong thing. Like he was unorthodox when it came to being an SJW, right? So on campus, they posted these posters that said, what you cannot wear for Halloween. And he was like, oh, please. So he goes on his personal Facebook page, and he lists all the things he's going to be, which was all the things that you weren't supposed to be. He's like, for Halloween this year, I'm going to be a hijab wearing blah, blah, blah. And he like lists all the things that he's not supposed to be. And he kind of went on a little rampage of like, you guys aren't going to tell me what to do. You're, all of this stuff. Anyway, so one person who was apparently on his personal Facebook page takes a screenshot of it, passes it through the honors program where he got into the honors college there at the university, and they put in these grievances to the officer, the equity people, right? This position that monitors the morality as far as SJWs are concerned. So they put in all of these grievances against him, and once you file those, like, that's just legit. It's not like you go to court it's not like they decide, is this legit? No,
guilty until proven innocent.
Right. You have 6 grievances, and here they are. So he got kicked out of the honors college for this.
Wow.
Because he didn't apologize for it. And they brought him into this committee with, they brought him in first to this equity officer. And she was shaming him and telling him he needed to go read these orthodox doctrines of grievance studies. And so then they wanted him to write this letter. Basically, they didn't say apologize, but they were like, basically tell us why you were wrong. So he wrote him this letter about why he wasn't wrong. And then yeah, he got kicked out.
He got kicked out of the university altogether, or just the honors program?
Just the honors program, but he got some scholarships taken away and stuff. And this is at a Christian university.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Michael Kenny real quick says, geez, dogs and cats in one show. Good thing you don't have birds and snakes. Yeah, definitely. I've got 2 dogs and 2 cats. So generally speaking, on the live streams, they end up coming on in. So when you look around at the world today and you kind of see this madness that, it has taken over America, I mean, does it seem familiar? I mean, does this seem like, the end game that these people have been looking for?
Yeah, it does. Although they don't tell you that's what it's going to look like, but all of a sudden, when you wake up, you go, okay, here's the logical conclusion to all of your nonsense. Mm-hmm. And it just really bothers me that I ever believed in this. Jordan Peterson has really helped me understand such deep truths and meta-narratives. And one of those is this: women have always symbolized chaos mythologically.
I can see it.
And yeah, so it shouldn't be surprising that not only as we turn into a matriarchy that the world gets more chaotic, but that when women's studies gets its foothold in the universities, that they're just falling into chaos. Because it's funny how he points this out and he goes, you guys are kind of living into this. You on one hand, feminists, I mean, he didn't say this, I've observed this. On one hand, they say, we're going to debunk this idea that women are more emotional. We're going to be taken serious in society, and all we need is an education. All we need is to be treated equally. And then this generation of women go into university, they get an education, they are treated equally. And what do? They go out and scream in the streets. So they're proving the old feminists wrong, which is, if you just give us an education, we won't be emotional. We can become something better than this overly emotional, crazy person. Like they're proving this wrong. And the older feminists are just shaking their head going, you guys, except they wouldn't say you guys because that would be sexist.
Oh, yeah, I'm immediately drawn back to that SJW on the day that President Trump came into office, screaming in the yellow vest on the ground. I mean, that is the personification of these people. Well, getting back to the idea, that I have about not engaging these people, do you have any tips for the audience, on how to successfully engage these people if they find themselves, getting into some type of, dialogue or tit for tat?
Well, you got to remember that they redefine words. So if you're talking about racism, they define racism differently than you define racism. You define racism probably as treating somebody differently based on the color of their skin, because, that's like the age-old definition. It's probably still in the dictionary, although I can't be sure. These ideologues have gotten their foothold in everything. But they redefine this. So they would say it takes power plus privilege. Well, how do you know who's in power? Well, we tell you who's in power. So those people over there can be racist. So they define it differently. When you're in a conversation with somebody like this, when they say, you don't get to say that because you're this group, the best thing to do is just say, yeah, I do.
Stand your ground.
Stand your ground, and don't let them redefine words.
Can you tell us some other words that they've redefined? Because what you said for me was exactly spot on. I mean, that is how I define it, and that's how I was taught it as a child. So I guess I've never considered the idea that it could mean something different to this group of people.
Oh, totally. Yes. They have redefined all kinds of words, sexism. The reason why they redefine this is because they don't want to be guilty of it. And they are doing these things. This is some of the most racist, sexist, bigoted people you will ever come across.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have to redefine words so that they don't fall into the categories that they're critiquing. Mm-hmm. So if they can write themselves out of this category, that's great. But sometimes they can't. For example, as a white person, SJW, you're automatically guilty of the cardinal sin of racism because of the color of your skin. I mean, the irony, right?
Yeah.
So because you have white skin, they assume that you have privilege in the world because they assume that your skin gets you places that other people can't go. And so if you're a prejudice, that automatically means you're racist. But if somebody who isn't white is prejudiced, then they're not racist. They're just prejudiced. You know, it's like if you kick a dog, it's not animal abuse. It's just prejudice. It's like, but if you kick a cat, it is animal abuse, but not a dog. You know, this is how they operate mentally. So understanding that, I think, is key. And also when you're having conversations with an SJW, just remember you're speaking to somebody who's in a cult kind of, and they already have their answers. So whatever you say, if you say this, they'll say that. And if you say that, they'll say this. And if you've had a conversation with one of them, you've had a conversation with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
It would go the exact same way if you had a conversation with this person as if you had it with this person. Okay.
To be quite honest with you, that's the reason that I don't engage them, because I've seen them just talking in circles, and it doesn't matter. You know, orange man bad, that's it. And, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of an argument you bring. It doesn't matter how much empirical evidence you present. They've already got their mind made up, and they're going from, you know, completely based on feelings. You know, like, I feel like Donald Trump is a horrible person, so therefore he must be, and you will never be able to convince me otherwise.
Yeah. You know, I would say...
And I hope nobody takes that out of context.
Don't cut and edit that. Yeah. I would say there are two kinds of people who are in this cult-like following. I think there's a lot of good actors that are brainwashed and hypnotized. And I think, like myself, and I think there are bad actors, and those people are power-hungry narcissist types that they would do anything for power, and they really don't care who they step on. So there are bad actors, and you have to kind of understand who you're working with. Someone like myself would be someone who means well and has been convinced by a set of ideas, but what helps them come out of it is being able to see the hypocrisy. When I started to see that what they said would happen wasn't happening, or when I started to see explicitly how people would say, you know, they would say hateful things about men. It's like, it's one thing to say, it's our turn now, you can just step aside. I mean, I wouldn't say it like that personally. I was never hostile, but the mentality was there of like, well, now it's her turn. But when you see the hypocrisy of somebody explicitly being hateful toward a demographic, even if they are white, male, Christian, etc., right? That exposes it for you. And so what woke me up especially too was watching some of these leftists that were so awful after Trump became president. They were throwing, here in Portland, they were throwing like TVs off from bridges onto the highway. They were crazy people. And all of a sudden I was like, I don't want to be associated with you. You're a psychopath. Like, I understand. I felt awful when Trump became president because I was in my bubble, but I wasn't going to throw a TV off the bridge.
Yeah, it's a step removed. Yeah.
Right.
I need to say thank you to Forrest Tillman, as well as to Jay Britz and Mike Q and Sarah P, all joining as members tonight, you guys. I appreciate that. And then also to Todd Jensen. Thank you for that super chat. So yeah, you know, this is one of the things that I think a lot of us struggle with, is because there obviously is a clear element of psychopathy among these people and just complete blind ignorance. You know, I mean, they are so radicalized that, you know, they're willing to do things like that. Whereas I would say, you know, by and large, the vast majority of Trump supporters would never consider throwing a television off of a bridge. You know, I mean, like, definitely there are people radicalized on both the right and the left, but I mean, I've never met one in real life, you know, but I have, on the other hand, met plenty of SJWs. You know, you never see people having a Trump rally and going around and hitting Hillary Clinton supporters in the head with the bike lock, or, you know, wearing a mask and, I don't know, spraying pepper spray in somebody's eyes, you know, doing things that are openly malicious. I mean, are these types of things tactics that were spoken about as being explicitly okay if it was a member of, you know, whoever the group is that's being the oppressors?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I had professors who said things like, we might have to get blood in the streets. I mean, so bringing socialism in could be, it could take a revolution. So
Wow.
there are professors in universities that are federally funded that are calling for revolution, essentially. That was 20 years ago. So I can't imagine what they're saying to them today.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they're all doing that, but I am saying in these grievance studies, the socialism doctrine that's what's animating these groups. It's the craving for revolution, and that's why I think it is important for Trump supporters not to respond in kind, because especially these Antifa types that are they're beyond. I mean, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But they are also encouraged by certain far left professors. Some of the professors are even Antifa members sometimes. Like I think there's one here in Portland that's explicit.
I've seen that, yeah.
But they encourage it with their words. They're not all of them, but some of them do. But where's I headed with that? Oh, Trump. So I think it's important not to respond in kind, because really what they want is blood in the street. They want violence. They want chaos, because once civil war breaks out, then they do have the option. They have the opportunity. I don't think they can win, but I think they would have the opportunity to take power. They kind of want everything to fall apart, honestly. And once you start, if you're a good actor and you start watching those things and you go, wait, I don't agree with that. I mean, I didn't sign up for that. I didn't, it starts waking you up. Even just this leftist behavior that's getting out of control. It's actually waking up a lot of people on the left that had been brainwashed and hypnotized, and they're starting to question it in mass. If anybody watches these walk away videos, you can hear it.
And how did you get involved with the walk away movement? How'd that happen?
Well, I had already been shocked by Trump becoming president because I didn't see it coming. I was a disoriented liberal. And my community around me was saying that the reason that he was elected was racism. Of course, everything is racism. And so I thought, well, it's possible. I can't believe I thought this was possible, but I did think it was possible. But I didn't think it was likely. And so I started to question, how did this happen? And I kind of started to listen to people who actually voted for him. Now, I have to say, I did not care what white people said, because you're not supposed to. So
just discount it altogether.
I did. But once I started listening to Black voters who voted for Trump and other
I'm
other
just
voters.
thinking about the cognitive dissonance for people, like seeing, like I've seen people on the left say Black Trump supporters, like as if because you are any race other than Caucasian, like, you should not be supporting Donald Trump, or how could you not support Donald Trump?
This is why they're so racist, because they have expectations for you to think a certain way based on your skin color. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I started to listen to people say, oh, I voted for him for these really other reasons besides race. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe. And so I listened to a whole bunch of people, and I started to be convinced that really this was not about racism. Well, Jordan Peterson comes through and starts exposing what was going on in these grievance studies. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've become a disciple of this craziness. So it did help wake me up. Yeah.
All right, good.
So that's how I ended up posting my walkaway video.
Okay. All right, sweet. Crypto Beatles, thank you for joining as a member. Same to Berserker Bear. Good to see you, buddy. Matthew Lusk says, Satanic frequencies, the Christian universities. Wait a second. Satan frequents the Christian universities because he's looking to bag fresh meat. Field brimming with game. Satan tempted Christ, so why not tempt Christian university students? It's a very good point. Obviously, if they can subvert those long-standing institutions, then they significantly diminish the power of them to create another strain of thought and another school of whatever it is, politics or religion, economics, any of it. Ethan Mai, thank you for that super chat. Says, how's it going? Good to see you. Casey Anon says, what is the tactic called when they start with a common, undeniable fact like slavery is bad, and then they tie it to social reparations, which is ridiculous?
Well, it's the white guilt thing.
Okay.
So they just teach white people to feel bad about history based on their skin color. So you know, even though you personally had nothing to do with it, maybe your family didn't even, but
Yeah.
you, because you look like the people back then you should feel bad about this. Therefore, I mean, because it's really back to this idea of seeing people as a group instead of as individuals. And that, yeah, it doesn't make logical sense, especially if you play it out. It's like, how exactly is this going to work, and what percentage of what kind of people get what percentage of what money and how? And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, I've never really understood it. I mean, because it seems like if you make an argument against reparations, then they make it so that you're making an argument for slavery.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, how can you not be for reparations because of, you know, X, Y, and Z? But, you know, like my family didn't own slaves. I mean, they came from Eastern Europe. I mean, and Ireland. Okay, like, you know, my ancestors were enslaved at one time. You know, but you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to admit that truth because it goes against the narrative that they want to push.
Yeah, because Marx did the group guilt thing. He was like, if you're wealthy, you're guilty. And that's what they've done with their own groups. They broke it up differently, but they do that with the guilt thing. So, just in Marx's theory, if you're rich, it's obviously for bad reasons. I mean, obviously, you didn't work hard, or didn't, or even if you did inherit it, you shouldn't get to have that for yourself. It's not fair or something. And so there's this parallel when they adopt Marx's ideas, but they change and morph them into these other categories like skin color. They automatically apply the group guilt to what they consider to be the privileged group, which is so ironic because if you think about it, they're really kind of worshiping the white man and telling Black people and people of color that they're not able to rise
Right.
above and achieve, you know?
Yeah, no, I've thought that often. Castile Leon says, "Did you get the info you wanted? I left in your commentary on the bottom of Emery Smith." I did not get the information on Emery Smith, but if anybody has information on Emery Smith, go ahead and email it to me at redpill78@protonmail.com. And then Whitehead says, "Gracie, thank you for opening up to us all. A lot to learn." Definitely. And now it is going to be time for you guys to call in with your thoughts and questions on this. I know that many of you have dealt with SJWs on the daily basis, fighting the good fight on Twitter and on other social medias. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the phones, and then if you guys want... Ooh, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Okay, there we go. So if you want to dial in, the phone number is on the screen. I'm also going to put the Zoom link into the chat, and then I'm going to put it into the description of the video. And if it's not showing for you guys, all you have to do is refresh your screen, and then you'll be able to get to it. Let's see. I'm going to put it right here up at the top, guys. So just refresh your screen, and you'll be able to get there. Need to say thank you to Berserkerberry. He says, keep in touch, W, and be there for friends and family. Oh, keep in touch and be there for friends and family, patriots. Together, we make it out of this, and the gravy flows after. God bless and protect all. Gracie, I was wondering, do you think that your experience there in your part of the United States is unusual, or have you seen other people who previously would have identified as a leftist or a social justice warrior or even a socialist to come around in the same way that you did? Maybe take an objective look at what the president's done and how things have changed in this country for everyone, not just white people.
Well, I think there are others. I just haven't met them personally.
Oh, man.
Because honestly, it's the kind of thing you don't speak openly about here is you just don't want to tell people that you're not a far left crazy person. So, you know, let alone tell them that you're conservative. But at the same time, I have a YouTube channel, and I have heard people say, oh, hey, someone in the Northwest who also walked away, or hey, someone in the Northwest no longer believes in this crap. And so I think they're out there. It's just that I mean, you can get fired. People, you know how they work, the SJWs. They mob. And so people are really kind of afraid to be like, yeah, not only am I not a crazy person, but I actually am going to vote for Trump. I mean, you go outside and your car's tires will be popped. I don't know.
Right.
You know?
Right. No, I live in a highly densely populated Democratic area, and if I were to put a Trump sign in my yard, then I would expect that to happen. I had there is definitely the presence of Antifa here in my town, and they went around and they'll put up signs like on every street corner trying to cancel a person. Like this guy that was a landlord. They claimed that I don't know, he didn't like people of color because of he didn't rent to somebody, or he had to have them leave because they didn't pay, and so then they call racism on everything. And I don't want to get canceled. I don't want I don't want that to happen. I enjoy being just a normal citizen. All right, so we've got our first caller here. This is Jason Howe. Looks like Jason's got to get his microphone working. At the same time that we're waiting for Jason to get his mic on, you guys, I'm going to drop the links to Gracie's social media and her YouTube. First of all, coming through is her YouTube channel right there. Then we've got her Twitter, her Instagram, and her website coming through as well. I'm going to put Twitter, Instagram, and website all in the same chat. Oh, look, we just lost Jason. All right, so we're going to go to a different caller. And then also, this is a copy of the book. While we're waiting for the next caller, Gracie, can you give us an introduction to what the book is and what it's about?
Sure. The book is a red pill fiction novel. So it's a journey of a leftist, I would say just more of a liberal, who ends up red pilling by the end of the book. I wouldn't say she starts off far left, although if you're not familiar with being in a liberal's head, then you might feel like she is. One of her friends is far left, but she's more just kind of a liberal that is stuck in a bubble, and she has to go back home to rural Oklahoma to take over her mom's cattle store because her mom ends up in a coma. So she has to work with this Southern white man who she thinks is ignorant, but they kind of end up in a relationship, and she realizes she has to kind of question what she really knows about people like him. And then eventually realizes the craziness that she's been in. He said it's what it's like to go through the red pill process from a liberal's brain to not being a crazy person.
Okay. All right, cool. I haven't read the whole thing, but I have started reading it, and it's written very well. I'm enjoying the story. I'm actually reading it with my girlfriend, reading it to her over the phone. So now cool. I actually thought that I heard somebody else on the line. Jason, are you on the line? Okay, I don't know. I thought that I heard somebody else calling in, but Aaron, are you there, buddy?
I'm here.
All right, excellent. Gracie, this is my friend Aaron. Aaron, this is Gracie. Thank you for joining us, Aaron.
Hi.
Hello, Gracie. I'm really enjoying the show, and you seem like a very awesome person.
Oh, thank you.
I had a walk away. I look back on something, and I'm very ashamed of it. There was this politician in my local area. I grew up in Minnesota. I'm in Wisconsin now, but he'd come door to door, and he'd come to our school. His name was Tad Jude, and he was a Democrat, and our family was Democrat. And so I really thought he was cool. And his name was Tad, like Abe Lincoln's son's first name was Tad. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Tad's just a sweet name anyways, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not too many people have the name Tad.
Yeah.
So when I finally got my own home in Mound, Minnesota, and he came to my door, I expressed to him how much I appreciated his, always going door to door and keeping in touch with the people. He said, well, you know what? I don't usually ask people this, but having a parade next weekend. Do you want to come down and help hand out stickers? I said, sure, it'd be great. I was handing out stickers with this other young guy, and I said, this was a long time ago. And I said, pretty excited about Bill Clinton. I think he's going to win the nomination. He's probably going to be president. And the other kid goes, oh, he's not very, Tad's not very excited about that. I said, well, why wouldn't he be? He goes, well, didn't you hear? He's switched. He's Republican now. And I took the stickers and I threw them at the other kid. And I said, I'm out of here. But looking back, it was the fact that he went door to door. It was the person and the dedication that I admired. And when you are raised on one side or the other, you are taught the other side is just And I dated a woman who was a Republican, and she said something that stuck with me. She said, the nicest women she'd ever met were all Republican women.
Yeah.
Yeah, the happiest too, and the prettiest.
Yes, all the above. Real quick, Daniel Turgeon says, thank you for exposing the truth. Where we go one, we go all. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it. I mean, I can totally relate to that, Aaron. I was raised in a household. We were Democrats. I mean, I never considered being anything other than a Democrat because that's what my parents were. I remember my mom going to Bill Clinton's inauguration. She brought a hat home for me, and I wore it everywhere religiously. I thought Bill Clinton was the coolest guy. But then you start learning things, and I realized that it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. You can be a despicable person either way. And unfortunately, I mean, we have a lot of those in politics, overwhelmingly.
Yeah, I met Bill Clinton. And
wow.
He signed a shirt for me. He signed it actually twice at his request.
Really?
At first, he signed it with a ballpoint pen. And then he was signing some other guy's hat with a Sharpie. He said, give me that shirt again. He signed it for me again. I think, oh, that's great. And I always thought it was cool, but, I'd give it away now. Who wants it?
Right. Man of the people. All right, Aaron. Well, thank you for your call, buddy. I appreciate you calling in.
Thank you. And nice to meet you, Gracie.
Nice to meet you, Aaron.
All right. We'll see you, bud. Okay. Coming up next, it's my good friend Alexandria Occasional Cortex running for John McCain's former seat in the great state of Arizona. AOC, are you there, buddy? All right. You'll be there any second. So,
hey,
there you are.
Doing?
Good. How about yourself?
Oh, wonderful. Great interview. You're so eloquent, Gracie.
Oh,
And first, congratulations, Red Pill, for 200,000.
That's right. Yeah, I completely forgot to mention it, guys. But I hit 200,000 subscribers, so that means that I'm going to be announcing 2 winners in my video. I might do it either tomorrow, Sunday, or Monday. It just depends on when I get time to do it. But just stay tuned because you got to listen to win. So, but yeah, thanks for calling in, AOC. What's going on?
Well, I had a question for Gracie, and that was, when did you first discover, or have you yet discovered, that every single misspelling and capital letters in the president's tweets were actually secret messages to his citizens?
Yeah, I'm still I have a lot of red pilling left to do, I'll be honest. I'm kind of I'm a newborn, let's put it that way. Yeah, I have to say, my brother-in-law being Nate Kane, the FBI whistleblower, it was a very harsh way to wake up to what it means to really be a leftist and what it means to red pill. It was hard to wake up to realize that the government is actually that corrupt, because you don't really want to believe that that's true, right? Mm-hmm. So I have a long ways to go.
Well, I guess I should then follow that question up, AOC, with, are you familiar with Q and the Q movement?
I'm familiar with it. I can't say that I understand. Okay. So I am familiar, yeah.
All right.
Definitely check out some early Red Pill 78 videos, as well as Joe M.
Yeah,
Plan to Save the World.
Yeah, that's a great primer. It's a great primer. I'll send it over to you if you haven't seen it.
Okay.
Well, great. Well, I'm sure you got a stack of callers up, but I just want to say thank you to the correct side and above the line, not below the line or left or right.
Yeah.
It's certainly about our children, our future, mm-hmm. our country, our Constitution, mm-hmm. and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you, AOC. I appreciate the call.
Bye
bud.
for now.
We'll talk to you soon. God bless. So, it's one of the things that I see from the left quite often is this dismissal of patriotism, dismissal of the Constitution, or, mm-hmm. What I think that many of us here feel is, this like sacred notion of what it means to be an American, or mm-hmm. what this country is. I mean, what can you say about that? I mean, what did they say to you like during this indoctrination process about America, and what the tenets of this country are?
It's just so sad, you guys. It's so sad. my grandfather willingly gave his life for this country in World War II. He eagerly went to fight, and he died before my dad was born. So my dad was sacrificing in some sense, just not having his father there all of his life. So, my family has served in the military. You would think that they wouldn't be able to get to me, but when they take you through university and they only tell you the bad things that the United States has ever done, they don't celebrate the good things. They make you read history books that are called revisioning history. That should tell you something.
Yeah.
And then they also don't tell you the horrors around the world. So they're focusing on all the bad things that the US has ever done. And it just makes you ashamed. It makes you ashamed to be American. And I can't believe they get away with it.
So, we talked about this a little bit before the call, but I mean, I can remember Tiananmen Square from when I was a child. I grew up before the Berlin Wall fell, and I remember like how exciting that was, the end of communism. And I don't think I ever had like any part of that education, really. I mean, I guess maybe I was just lucky with who my professors were, but I never felt like I was indoctrinated into socialism. I mean, I was going for I have an MPA. I have an MPA, Master's in Public Administration. So I guess I was studying government. So, I mean, they were perhaps giving me the slant of the United States, because that's what I was looking to do with the rest of my life. But I mean, there's no mention of the horrors of the Stalinist regime or the Khmer Rouge.
No.
None
of it.
Socialist
None
China.
of it at all. I'm telling you, these grievance studies are indoctrination machines, and they are indoctrinating people into socialism and anti-capitalism and anti-Americanism. And those degrees are, it's not just the people in those degrees, but those classes are being offered as these electives, like the one that got me to take this as a major. Sometimes they're required to take an elective in one of these grievance studies. And so even if you get some of the information that you got, you might also get some of the indoctrination or some of the negative information coming from another class.
I've always wondered what their position on China would be. I mean, because arguably China was a conquering nation for centuries, many years ahead of Europe. And I mean, there are atrocities taking place there on a regular basis. And I mean, they're also one of the most racist cultures in the world. I mean, they're not interested at all in allowing people to assimilate into their culture. I mean, it's very closed off, even still today. So I guess that's definitely something that I would be interested in hearing the perspective of somebody from that type of a background. I mean, what do you have to say about that? I mean, perhaps, Europeans, were conquerors in a certain part of the world, but you've got the whole rest of the world, and you've got a lot of other cultures that were dominating others at different points in history.
Yeah, it's an embarrassingly simple answer. It's the same answer for why feminists don't talk about the horrors that happen to women across the world. And it has to do with white guilt. And part of that is Western guilt. So they say if you're a Western country, you cannot critique non-Western countries because supposedly Western countries are more powerful. I mean, they have these narratives. So if white people are the most powerful, they cannot critique. They can only be racist. So therefore, anybody of color can't be racist. Same with non-Western countries. You can't critique what they're doing, period. You don't even talk about it. You just ignore it because you as a Westerner need to be quiet because supposedly you're in power and you just need to step back and let them do what's natural to them, which is obviously perfect, whatever it is. Right. I don't know. They just ignore it.
Well, I mean, that calls to mind the situation like in Afghanistan, I mean, they've got some practices that are pretty despicable, I think, to people in the Western world, and they're just allowed to go ahead and do it, I mean, we've had waves of migrants coming into many different countries and they're committing crimes and atrocities, but then it's just written off as being a cultural norm, like rape and molestation, I mean, like that's just, I don't understand how we've gotten to a point in society where people can be okay with writing that off.
Yeah, it's back to the white guilt. They make it a Western guilt, so you're not supposed to critique it because they, if you're white, if you're Western, if you're any powerful position, you're not supposed to have a voice. You're supposed to be quiet. And it doesn't matter what anybody else does if they're in this privileged category. It's like an upside down hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the hierarchy of oppression. If you're at the top of that stack, the oppression stack, then you get to basically do whatever you want with moral exemption.
Okay. You have the moral imperative as long as you are not a Caucasian male. All right. Polar Bear Smack calling in. Man, this is your first time calling into the show, buddy. Got to get your microphone on there. I like your your CV-19 mask. That's pretty sweet. Chris Hawkins says, that is very cool to say. I don't know which comment we're talking about, Chris, but hopefully you're calling in tonight like you normally do.
Yes, bro.
Hey, Polar Bear, what's going on, man?
I'm all right, dude. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Yep.
Awesome.
Make sure you mute the stream in the background.
Yep. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
All right. Hey, Gracie, how are you tonight?
Hey, good. How are you?
Awesome. I was just basically calling because I heard you said that you wrote the book, but you left it in Harvard. Are you from out in this area?
No, I'm actually from California.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you go to Harvard?
No, I didn't go to Harvard, but I do live in Massachusetts, and I have a lot of friends that, went to a lot of colleges here, and I kind of experienced some of the same stuff that, you were talking about. But it's just a little weird how the people act up here, how they react. But I guess, Massachusetts is super liberal up here, so. Yeah,
it is. That's why I put my character in that place originally. So when she went to Oklahoma in a small town, it was a super different kind of place. I wanted her to kind of go from one world to another, I guess.
Right.
Polar Bear, I used to live in Amherst, Massachusetts.
Wow. Awesome, dude.
Yeah, so that's...
Did you go to college up here?
I didn't. I moved there with the intention of going to UMass, and then I had a tragedy back home. I had a couple of my good friends die in a fire, so I decided to move back. Oh, it's okay, man. It was definitely it's no fun, but Amherst is interesting because right there you've got like Amherst, Mount Holyoke, Smith College, UMass, and then what's the fifth one? There's another one.
Boston College?
What's that?
Boston College?
Boston? No, I mean, I know that's out there, but there's another one that's very close. There's like 5 colleges all right there, and I've heard tell that the characters in Scooby-Doo were based upon, each of those people were based on one of those colleges.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But I mean, like, so what's your experience been like there? I mean, as a person of color, do you see people treating you differently? Like perhaps breaking their own conception of what it means to be whatever they're labeling you as?
Right. Well, in the beginning, I had a lot of problems when I first came here. My dad was in the military, so we left. So I wasn't really like all the other city kids. So I kind of got in with all the crowds, all the races. So I ended up having I have friends of all nationalities. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. But yeah, I experienced it a little bit, in the late 80s. And then, going into the 90s, it was just like I had to try to fit in somewhere. So it's either, what I mean? It's either you be a certain way or.
Did you feel like they forced you to group up? Was it not okay that you wanted to be friends with whoever you wanted to be friends with?
So the problem with I say, I don't like to say African Americans, but and I don't like to say black people either.
Sure.
Whatever. The problem with brown people is, we have this thing where, if you're dark skinned, then you hang out with the dark skinned people. Light skinned, we're separated too.
Oh wow.
Even though, yeah, dude, it's terrible. And so all my family members, they're dark skinned. You know what I mean? And my mom, she's like the only one that's this light color out of 14 kids. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I growing up, I thought that I was dark skinned, you know what I mean, the whole time. So when I got into high school, I was hanging out with the darker kids, and when one of the lighter kids pulls me to the side, like, hey, you're with the wrong group. And I'm like, dude, I didn't get that. I'm like, what do you mean I'm with the wrong group? I'm like, we're all black. Does it even matter if I hang with you or if I hang with them? I hang with everyone, but it just, I was like, wow, that kind of, opened me up to like, wow, we're racist within our own,
Wow. I have never heard that. I never would have even thought that. I mean, Gracie, did you notice people did you notice people tribing up like within the social justice warriors? Like, I mean, did people do that consciously or unconsciously?
The social justice warriors, a lot of them are white, and and then it's so funny because they start talking about like they want to have people of color as their friends, and you're like, why don't you just make friends and see what happens?
Right.
Because it's really
why do you gotta have a quota?
Yeah.
Right.
It's like it's really awkward when someone comes up to you and you feel like something's off and it's weird, but you don't know why. These people are going up to people going, I'm going to pick that person because of their skin color and I'm going to try to be their friend. It's really creepy.
It's like the antithesis of what they're ascribing they should be doing. I mean, if they're looking to create equality, then, I mean, you should be going into these situations blind. I mean, make decisions about people based on the content of their character rather than the amount of melanin in their skin.
Exactly.
They judge people like they'll go to a party or something. They'll be like, there's a lot of white people here. And you're like, you are white. Why are you worried about that? like, maybe you should leave. There'd be one less.
That's terrible. That's terrible, Gracie. Right?
Oh, that's great.
Listen, you guys. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for having me, Red Pill.
Hey, no,
Gracie.
It's good to meet you.
Good work, Gracie. Seriously, you as well. Yes, and I'll be following you on Twitter right after this.
Oh, good.
Definitely keep up the good work. Yeah, just
thanks,
spread that
Polar Bear.
awareness, and I'm glad you came over to this side because everyone hates me now that I'm a Trump supporter, and
well,
they're just gonna have to deal with it. It's okay. I can't wait till the rest of the world wakes up. But
listen, let me tell you, your voice is extremely important for helping people like my former self to wake up because they privilege your voice. And so when I was trying to wake up and I was trying to figure out why people voted for Trump, I would only care about what certain people said, and people who had darker skin mattered more. I mean, they think so crazy, but it worked to really hear people's opinion who didn't fit my stereotype of a Trump supporter. So it's good. Just keep speaking out.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, it's a great community. So welcome to the community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we're glad to have you, Polar Bear. Thank you for calling in, dude. Glad to hear your voice.
Thank you, sir. You have a good night, brother. All
right, man. Take it easy.
Have a good night, Gracie. Bye-bye.
You too, Polar Bear.
Bye.
Sweet. Good stuff, man. Okay. Next caller is Group C. Oh, that's right. Jeepers Creepers. Group C. Jeepers Creepers. Chris Hawkins says he needs the Zoom link. Oops, that's not it, Chris. That is, well, here, I'll just send that anyways. That's the link to Gracie's book. Here is the Zoom link coming through. All right, there you go, guys. Anybody who wants to call in and ask Gracie a question or give us your thoughts or opinions on this matter, feel free to do that. I need to say thank you to Chris Hawkins. He said, drop the Zoom link. Baby Yoda, good to see you, brother. He says, enjoying your fixed bathroom? Just a memory now. Seems like a different lifetime ago. As always, best regards. Yes, Baby Yoda, I am definitely enjoying the bathroom. I got to take a nice hot shower today, and I was very grateful for it. Chris Hawkins, yep, the Zoom link is in there, buddy. Okay, Group C, are you there?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
How y'all doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Excellent.
Doing pretty good. So I wanted to share with you an experience I had on this subject right before I graduated from Cal Poly back when I lived in California. So like Gracie said, we had to take a class in order to graduate that would, I guess, expose, if you will, the students to this kind of stuff in an effort to brainwash them, right? Well, I had to take an English class called, it was like, shoot, I can't remember the name, but we had to read these poems and these like plays and all that stuff that had to do with, the type of material that the social justice warriors were into. And I noticed a lot of the material was very demonizing towards, like what you guys talked about, white people, rich people, Christians. Even funny, they also seem to be attacking like what they call defectors, like a person of color who
traitors.
like, yeah, exactly. Like I remember there was a story we had to read where there was a guy who used to be a Muslim, and then he converted because he thought that the religion he followed was barbaric, and then the story just seems to like wail on that guy who seems to be making his own conscious choice of where he wants to go with his life. And we had to write essays and all this stuff on what was wrong with that guy, you know. And let me tell you, the only way I passed this class was by writing my essays on why it's bad to be white. It was an automatic pass.
Sometimes that's what you got to do in college. I mean, professors literally, they give you the syllabus, they tell you exactly what they want to see, exactly what they want to hear, and as long as you adhere to those standards, then it's fairly easy to just fly right through.
Yep.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. I didn't take this class seriously. Like I said, all I had to do was write down being white is bad, Trump is Hitler, you know.
So this is recent. You recently had to write this essay.
I took this class back in the summer of 2018, and then I graduated the 2018. So it was considerable time ago.
Okay, excellent. So, if you don't mind us asking, what is the climate like where you live right now? I mean, are you surrounded by people, that are pro-President Trump or anti-President Trump? I mean, do you find yourself having to guard your opinions when you're around other people there?
I am actually. After I graduated in California, I couldn't find a job there, and I started to lose hope. So I started to go look for a job beyond California, and I moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and we have a lot of pro-Trump people here, and I like it a lot here. My landlords, they're definitely Trump supporters, and we have all this talk, and I got them introduced to Q and all that stuff, and they've been aware to the reality of our world. They just didn't know about Q. You know, they were actually under the impression that, you know, the New World Order was coming, and it was only a matter of time before they got here. And then when I got them introduced to Q and all that stuff, they were really stoked. But to answer your question, I live in a Trump-friendly environment at the moment, and I love it. I love it a lot.
Good. I envy you. I wish that I could walk down the street wearing my MAGA hat, or, not feel threatened because I have a Trump sticker on my car or something like that. I do have an Epstein didn't kill himself sticker on my car, though, but nobody said anything about it.
That's something everybody can agree on.
Yeah, exactly. Group C, are you going to help out Alexandria Occasional Cortex on his campaign to take John McCain's former seat?
You know what? I just got on, so I think I missed that. What's that all about?
Well, he's in the process of gathering signatures because he's going to get on the ballot to run for John McCain's former seat. If anybody here is from Arizona and from, a place where you can vote for that, I'll make a post later on with some of AOC's information, like the actual campaign information, because I know that he's looking for people to help out and to gather signatures and, maybe put in some hours because obviously campaigns don't run themselves.
Yeah, count me in. I'd be happy to help.
All right, sweet. Well, I hope you hear that, AOC. Definitely, I hope that you win. All right, Group C, anything else for Gracie on this subject?
Nope, all good. So I'll let you get on to the next caller now.
All right, brother. Thanks for calling. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You will take care now.
You too.
Bye.
All right, and already gone. Okay, let's see. Lee Henderson Nider joined as a member. Thank you very much for that, Leah. Son of a Green Card says, we need more trade schools. Nothing against colleges, but dirty hands don't live in ivory towers. And no, that's not a dig against all college-educated people. No, I completely agree with you there. It seems like many of these SJWs are completely ignorant, as to what it takes to run the world. I mean, what is needed. They want to make everybody in their image, but then, who's going to be left to do everything that it takes for them to survive on a daily basis?
Right. I couldn't agree more. I think we do need more trade schools. And some of the kids in these Ivy League places, it's easy to make them feel guilty because they didn't necessarily earn the money that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they go to these schools and they hear these people saying rich people should feel bad, it's easy to kind of accept that because you're like, well, I didn't really earn it and my parents are rich. And, it's easy to make them feel guilty.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do you inoculate your children before they go to college? So we do this at our dinner table every night. I mean, my kids saw me go from just kind of shocked when Trump became president to now I'm going to vote for him. And they've been watching this process. So I've been talking to them about all of it, hoping I inoculate them to the craziness that's, inevitable.
Well, I mean, what do you suggest that, parents that are here in the audience? I mean, I think that's something a lot of us think about, I mean, like I had to deal with it myself. My daughter is a Bernie Sanders supporter. I guess she was, but she's definitely not going to vote for Biden. But so I mean, like this is something that I kind of worked at, trying to, keep her mind in going in a certain direction. But there's only so much you can do when they're, out of the home and they're being taught by teachers, somebody out that's not you for the formative part of the day.
Yeah. Well, you have to instill in them your own moral code. And I have to say Christianity is the best inoculation for it. And this is why Christianity and Judaism as well tells people that you are not essentially good. Don't trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's something to that. But this other secular non-deist religion tells people you are essentially good. And therefore, everything you think is good, and therefore anyone who disagrees with you is bad. And so there's this logic behind it that's like, I didn't fully buy into really because I had just sort of bought into certain ideas, but I never fully gave up my Christianity. And I think part of that was really useful in bringing me out, was realizing I could be wrong, because you were trained to think that you are a sinner. You're trained to think that you could be wrong. In fact, you are often wrong. And so don't trust yourself in some sense. And I have to say, that's a really good foundation to have children, right? And instill in them the value of individualism, mm-hmm. and tell them that they will be told that individualism is bad. And then tell them why it's not. Tell them why group think is actually dangerous. Tell them the history that they're not going to hear. Mm-hmm. Tell them about socialism and the horrors that happened. I mean, every dinner we talk about big concepts. We talk about group identity. We talk about why that's a bad road to go down. Socialism. We have to teach them things we know they're not going to hear in college or even grade school. Absolutely. In Oregon.
I was going to ask also earlier, do you think that your master's program in religious studies, do you think that helped inform you to come out of that indoctrination? I mean, getting back to that moral compass?
No, I studied religion from a secular point of view.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I studied it from a sociology point of view, but it is helpful in reflecting on what I came out of. Mm-hmm. I can see that the professors in universities act as high priests of mm-hmm. this secular non-deist religion that they are indoctrinating people into. So I have language I can put to what's happening that is very religious in nature, because they're teaching morality. They're teaching why socialism is moral and why capitalism is immoral. I mean, these are religious ideas if you think about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, give your kids faith in something bigger than themselves. Give them the idea, raise them to believe that they are not essentially good. And I know that's very controversial, but I think that's key. I really do.
I tend to agree. Todd Rubel says, where can I buy my white privilege card?
Well, one of my characters, okay, so in my book, there's this left-leaning woman, and she meets this, conservative guy, and they have this conversation, and she goes, white men, they come with this entire package of privilege that not everybody else gets. And he goes, sweet. If I'm not here when that package arrives, would you sign for me?
That's cute. Tree Climbing says, a beautiful, excellent guest. Yes, definitely. And then Lee Richards, thank you for that super chat. Coming up next is a good friend of the program, Carl to go where we go one, we go all. Carl, what's up, brother?
Hey, good to hear from you, brother.
Glad you're here.
Red Pill, love to see you again. Gracie, nice to meet you again.
Hi.
It's good to see you back on the show. Want to
Hi,
shout
Carl.
out to Baby Yoda and Edge of Wonders in the chat. So love to see them here.
Good stuff. Hey, guys. Good to see you.
So my question and my topic for you tonight, Gracie, is this. I know you're still, working on your red pill. Outside of politics, have you tried broadening your horizon on some of the information that you've been brainwashed against through other subjects?
Well, what's an example?
Well, have you ever heard of Mud Fossil University?
Boston University?
No, Mud Fossil University.
Oh, no, I have not.
Now that is a expand your mind, really open things up. It's fascinating. I learn something new from him every day. What he has discovered is that everything, most of the history that we've been told we know is a lie. I mean, even from recent history, current history to much, much older history. And he has DNA tested rock samples that have come up with human DNA. And of course, these rock samples are not average size. They are gigantic in size. And some of the sizes of these fossils are massive. We're talking bigger than our imaginations can handle.
Like giants?
Like the giants of the Bible. Exactly.
Yes. And in the Bible it says we are grasshoppers. We were grasshoppers to them. And that is not an understatement. That was anyway. So that's just one example of, there are people out there that are researching history and are not excluding it because it doesn't fit in a specific narrative.
Well, let me tell you, I have such little trust in anything anymore, but even myself. When you come out of something like that, you're like, can I even trust me? Because, when you are duped like that, you feel kind of like, I don't even know if I can trust myself. I definitely cannot trust the media. And now I can't trust the government. And now I can't trust this and this, education. No. And so really it comes down to, at this point, my faith. I'm willing to explore all things now. I mean, I think I've always been willing to kind of look into stuff, but yeah, I am. I'm more interested in sort of hearing what people have to say, although I'm more distrustful than I ever have been. So,
well, you're not alone there. Anytime somebody gets red pilled, the lies, I've been searching for the truth my whole life. I was told at 13 years old that not to trust anything I'll ever learn. And, I've explored the world trying to figure out what am I being misled to believe and what am I seeing. And it takes decades from what I see before I'm able to comprehend what I actually saw.
This is coming from a guy who saw a real live dinosaur in, where was it? This is in the Congo or something? Brazil?
Australia.
That's right.
wow.
Yes. He made physical contact with a real live dinosaur.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's hard to believe.
It's true. Like when he called into the show and told us about this the first time, we looked it up, and he's not the only person that's seen them in this area of Australia. It's a very specific type.
Wow.
We were able to pull it up, and I mean, the world is vast.
Yeah.
I mean, like man is not everywhere. I mean, there are definitely places that animals, if they were savvy enough, I mean, obviously, if they've been able to evade predators and man for this long, then they could continue to do so. So very cool.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
My only advice to you, Gracie, is through your struggling times, trust yourself and your senses and what the voices and your emotions tell you over what your mind tells you. So it's the only way you can break the brainwashing. I mean, for me, like when I watch Mud Fossil University, this guy knows his stuff. Of course, I have some of my background is in archaeology and stones, so but not so much the microscopic level of the human anatomy. That is something new to me, and but at least I have, you know, one part to look at and understand. So when and he's matching the two, and it's amazing. Um, so you can, my analytical mind loves his research, and you know, can easily believe what he is presenting. But when it comes
Wow.
to, sorry, Red Pill, go ahead.
No, you're okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, I just wanted to say, you know, I do subscribe to Mud Fossil University, and I do have some understanding of anatomy and, you know, vascular architecture. And when I first heard about it, it was difficult for me to, you know, latch onto. I was like, this is, you know, this can't be real. But he's got many videos where he can show anatomy in a fossilized structure, and you know, the idea that there's you know, DNA present inside of a fossil like that, you know, I mean, I'm at least willing to go ahead and, you know, give it a shot. And I mean, it's the kind of thing that I would love to see more people research, but it's one of those forbidden subjects, you know? I mean, like, just like in society, we have all of this forbidden stuff in archaeology, and, you know, in you know, the idea that perhaps there were other creatures here on Earth that that we haven't specifically identified. The easiest thing for me is to point to, you know, all of the different species that are being discovered on a regular basis. I mean, just think about how many bugs are out there that are discovered on a yearly basis. You know, new species of plants, stuff like that, even birds.
Interesting.
Yeah, very cool.
So trust what God gave you, and try to, you know, breaking the brainwash is insanely hard, and it's an emotional roller coaster. You're not crazy. I'm going to tell you right now, you're not crazy. The only person you can trust, the only information you can trust, is your inner self. It will never lie to you. You know.
Well, thank you, Carl. I appreciate the advice.
You're welcome. God bless you guys. Thanks again, Red Pill, and say hi to everybody in the chat. You guys are amazing.
Thank you, Carl.
I'll catch you guys next week or tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow, man. All right. Appreciate the call, brother.
Yes, sir.
All right. Have a good night. Ambi Nwakabea, I think I said that right. I believe that every story of racism is a lie. White man is not capable of hate because hate and curiosity can't go together. Who holds licensing of N-word related items? Yeah, I mean, I think that when people are taught whatever it is, you know, throughout their life, you know, I mean, like you're taught to fear or to hate, or, you know, that something is bad or that something is good. I mean, obviously there are innate things within us that I think we have a moral compass that is going to guide us on certain things. You know, I mean, in most cases, you know, people are, you know, I don't know, man. There seems to be like an overwhelming, I guess, preponderance of like pathological narcissism in today's society. People looking to themselves as the only answer, you know? I mean, like you said, people are taught that whatever they choose is good, you know? So then by that right, you know, it's okay to go ahead and, you know, to beat somebody or to spit on somebody or to belittle them. But, you know, in actuality, I mean, like I see something like that and I immediately know inside my heart that that's not something that you're supposed to do. But I don't know if that's because I was born with the moral compass or because I was taught that by my parents, because I certainly was.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think the most dangerous people are the ones that think, well, the ones that know they are morally right.
Right. Most definitely. All right. Coming up next, we have Chris Hawkins. Good. Glad you got the link, buddy. Chris, what's going on, man? Got to get your microphone on. Let's see. Caitlin Johnson said, don't for the phone calls, the 757 area code. I don't know what you mean. Are you saying don't call that phone number? Hang on. I don't know what you mean, Caitlin. I'm sorry. But you can call the number that's on the screen. If you're on the East Coast, you can call that 929 number. If you're on the West Coast, you can call that 669 number, and then you enter that meeting ID. What's going on, Chris? Chris, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, sweet. What's going on? Chris, I think we got a little bit of a lag, buddy. It's like stalling on us.
All right, man. I can hear you, but I think I'm on an echo again.
Okay. Well, I won't speak.
Hey,
Go ahead.
Gracie, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having the guts to, get on the show and say what you have to say. And, I think we all need to hear that it's hard, when you're being red-pilled, you could feel like you're late to the show or you don't know exactly what's going on. And that takes a lot of guts, and I want to tell you that I appreciate you saying that, because that helps red pill other people.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
Man, I got this weird echo.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. Chris, thanks for your call, buddy. I appreciate you. All right, I don't think it's working, man. All right, listen, maybe try a different headset next time. See if that doesn't work. All right, brother.
Okay, well, before I go real quick, I wanted to say that, this was a really hard call, because I went to All right. You guys have a good night.
Okay, brother. Yeah, we got a serious delay there. All right, Chris. No, if you want to, you can go ahead and finish your statement. I think we just got a serious delay. Oh, he just left. All right, brother. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Each time you're calling in, Chris, maybe we just try calling in on the phone next time, so we don't have the added pressure of the bandwidth on the video. Katie by the Moon is up next. M&A Manon is a new supporter of the channel. Thank you for that, M&A. And we are looking to get Katie. Here she is. That microphone is working. What's going on, Katie?
Hey, how are you guys?
Good. How about
Hi.
yourself?
Good.
Pretty good. Don't worry, I won't go on forever.
You're fine.
So sorry about last week, guys.
You're fine. You're fine.
Well, congratulations on the 200,000 followers.
Thank you very much.
And Gracie, I guess I just want. Sorry, my sinuses are just whacked. I wanted to say that I think it's wonderful that you're starting to go into another direction. And from my perspective, I know it was really hard for me when I became red-pilled. She's actually having panic attacks and stuff. It was crazy. But what I like to tell people is listen to that inner gut. I come from a faith based situation. To me, I feel that's the Holy Spirit. Basically telling you, it's a God, not I'm sending you a message, listen to me. Listen to what I'm saying. And I think it connects between your mind and your heart. And it's intertouched with your faith. But anyway, no, it's fantastic. And I do realize it's hard. And as far as Q goes, I like it. I figured out something today. I sent it to Methods and Red Pill. And it is exciting when your eyes are finally opened up to everything. But as far as your education, you're right. In my county, we're very fortunate. We have the trade schools. All these seniors, they go for 2 years, their junior, senior year. It's an elective. And they actually learn heating, cooling, IT, all kinds of,
Practical.
things. Well, it's far more practical. But I think we have a responsibility as parents, grand neighbors, aunts, uncles, whatever, to really start teaching each other the real truth. I mean, I don't know if you guys have paid attention lately, but if you watch a National Geographic, there are no holds barred anymore. I thought Jefferson was this great president, and then I learned he really sold people out.
Yeah.
So it's what you find.
if you're if you're a person in history now, it doesn't matter what your accomplishments were.
Yeah.
They're just going to tear you down, based upon your gender and your race. Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Yeah, they like judging the past by today's standards, even though today's standards, sometimes you just shake your head. You're like, really?
Yeah. And I think it's good from Red Pill's perspective as well. The things that he's saying, from ignoring things, because I've noticed, like, for a while there, I think we got to be honest, even each other, who, whether you be conservative, Republican, started kind of like getting antsy about what was going on, and they were just like getting mad at each other. So I would ignore that. It's like, just because somebody thinks they know something, and maybe Red Pill can attest to this, there's a lot of people out there that I'm in a non,
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know what? I think the problem is that it's still part of that indoctrination. I mean, we've been taught to, just go from that, from the point that we have the moral imperative, that, I'm right, I know that I'm right, therefore I cannot allow for any dissenting opinions or, thoughts to come in. And I'll, defend that to the death. So I see a lot of people, in the conservative movement, going at each other in the same way that people from the right and the left will go at each other. And I don't think it's healthy. I mean, when I say that, as a society, we've lost the ability to have a conversation, to have a discourse. I mean, it's universal. I mean, it is not just from the left to the right, but I mean, I see it on the right all alone on its own.
Yeah, I think it's also a sense of communication, and the biggest part of communication is listening. It's not just talking.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, well, Katie, thank you for your call. I appreciate it.
All right, you guys take care and be blessed.
You too.
Thanks,
God
Katie.
bless.
Bye-bye.
All right, awesome. Thanks for the calls, guys. We've still got 11 people. I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of them, but Blue Collar News is coming up. Oh, shoot, hold on. I accidentally opened iTunes. Blue Collar News, are you there?
Yes, sir.
How are you doing tonight, sir?
Absolutely wonderful, considering in 3 hours Vegas is going to be on lockdown.
Vegas is going to be on lockdown. Wow. Well, I guess I had heard that they were closing down all the casinos and everything, but...
Oh, that's the Strip's been a ghost town for 4 days. But
wow.
As of all of the grocery stores, they limited people to 10 people in the store at a time. We've had lines going around the block. But as of today, they announced, because nobody was observing the lockdown for the grocery stores and all the businesses, that they're just going to shut everybody down completely. So,
well, I kind of saw it coming.
I've been able to stay working for almost 2 weeks, so it's not as bad as what it could be. But
good.
It's going to get interesting, because if they're shutting the whole city of Vegas down, we're an island. I mean, literally everything is 250 miles away from us.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be quite interesting how this plays out. But
well, hopefully you guys stay safe.
Oh yeah, no, we are. We're ready for this. I've been preparing for 30 years. So on your guest note in the walkaway movement. So I don't know whether you realize it or not, but the Q followers early on became a lot of the, I guess I'd say, silent moderators in the walkaway movement when it first started. I joined that movement at about 1,500 members.
Cool.
I watched it go from 1,500 to about 72,000 in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then Facebook and the social justice warriors running around started messing with people's accounts. There's actually a group on Facebook under one of the Democrat sites where they go in, and there's about 3,000 of them. They call them social justice warriors. And they'll figure out which account to target. And then they go in and they flag every post, every comment, every person on that whole account. as hate speech or rude or graphic or whatever, and Facebook's algorithms see 3,000 people reporting this same page at the same time for the same thing, and it locks them down. Brandon had to deal with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
He had to fight to get his account back. Diamond and Silk went through the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Exact same way. And it's actually, everybody thinks that there's this huge group against these people. There's not. It's about 3,000 or 4,000 people that play the social justice warrior. I wish, I don't have the time anymore after my account was banned twice on Facebook just because I was part of the Q groups and Brandon's group. I walked away from Facebook.
I did the same thing. I mean, I walked away several years ago, but yeah, I mean, I had an experience where I posted a white paper from the NIH about the efficacy of the MMR vaccine, and I got attacked just viciously. People telling me that it was people like me are the reason that measles still exists. And I said, guys, I said, read the paper, okay? This is from the government, all right? You know, but they're not interested in that. They've got their idea of what the narrative is, and they just want to attack.
I'm interested in the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the last 2 weeks, I've spent pretty much every available minute that I had reassuring the people around me that we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because we are. I mean, as a country, as a people, I really do think that we're going to become more united when all this is done. I mean, in my heart, I do believe that, because when I was out shopping at the grocery store, everybody was smiling. Everybody was happy. You know, we all avoided Walmart, of course, because that's where all the really scary people are. But it was very calm and very mellow. And, you know, it's weird because there's kind of a calm that's coming over a lot of the people who know that this is a media thing. This is a propaganda thing. It's really not going to be, I don't think it'll be anywhere comparable to H1N1.
Probably
I
not.
really don't. But I truly believe that this was a bioweapon released for a certain purpose at a certain time. And because China didn't talk about the infection rate within their country, a whole bunch of adrenochrome was harvested that was contaminated. And that's why we have the situation with Tom Hanks. And that's why we have the situation with Madonna, is the adrenochrome was harvested in the same exact city as where this virus broke out at. So if they harvested adrenochrome for 6 weeks prior to anybody knowing, well, we kind of have a situation where we can kind of see who was getting mail order adrenochrome, which is adrenaline. That's the EpiPen. For the TV stars and the movie stars, they use adrenaline as their drug of choice to be able to stay young. And the correlation, now that we're looking back on it, is just crazy what we're seeing.
Interesting.
All right. Well, Blue Collar News, thanks for your call, buddy. We're past the midnight hour. So, all right. Appreciate you calling in. Stay safe. All right. Good stuff. Hey, thank you to everybody who called in. Thank you to Gracie for coming on the show tonight. Gracie, I want to give you the last word. Tell everybody where to find you and what you want them to take away tonight.
All right. Well, you can find me at Embarrassing Mom on YouTube. I tweet once in a while, but rarely. And I'm on Twitter at Read Gracie West. I also have a Instagram page at Read Gracie West. So I guess, you know, I've come full circle to my faith in Christ. And I would say, don't waste a single tragedy, because that's when you really find God. You know, that's where you find peace. So if you are struggling with anything, really, I would say just don't waste a single tragedy, because I think that's where you can access God.
All right, so the same advice that Rahm Emanuel gave us, but in a much different setting. Just need to say thank you to Denise. She says, never stop asking questions, never stop looking for answers. It can be scary, but don't just accept the narrative. They've been lying to us for hundreds of years. Caitlin Johnson says, don't forget, sorry for the typo. We have been trying to get through via phone and will be so many people in line, but get skipped for a video call. You guys, I'm just taking whoever's at the top of the list. So if you called in and I didn't get to you, then I guess there's a different order to the calls than I thought. So I apologize for that. I'm just taking whoever's at the top of the list. Michael Kenny says Vegas should have been locked down for 30 years. Chris Hawkins says it's easier to bring others in with our stories because they're true. You know it sucks when they tell young women that young men suck. Yes, that is puts us at a disadvantage. Denise says Boris has called all pubs, clubs, restaurants, cafes to close from tonight. No sporting events, no more groups of 10. Troops on standby to help police. Panic buying is ridiculous here. Denise is in the UK. And Chris says, thank you, Gracie. We needed this more than most can admit. Sorry I couldn't offer up more of me. God made Chris fun. All right. Thank you, Chris. Thank you to everybody who did participate tonight. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to my mods. And most importantly, Gracie, thank you very much to you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Red Pill.
You're very welcome. And as always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector, and this was your Red Pill news for Friday Night Livestream. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.